Welcome. Today we will be disassembling a Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 5, and this particular model is the 1570. For disassembly, we're going to need a small Phillips bit. This is a 2.5. So first we will go ahead, flip it over, and remove these screws. Alright, once we have all the screws out, I'm going to go ahead and find the seam where the bottom cover meets the palm rest and just work that around until you pop off the bottom cover. It can be easiest to start on the side sometimes, but just wherever you can find a little bit of a gap or make a little bit of a gap to get that straight edge in there. Right. And once you've worked it out of the little retainers, then you can remove the bottom cover. Alright, so now we can see inside the laptop. First thing we're going to do is disconnect the battery. So we'll just pull that connector out using some fingernails or a little bit of a tool. And then we can go ahead and remove these screws. Alright, so we're going to lift up on this side and then pull the battery out. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove some of the parts. We'll go ahead and start with the SSD drive. And underneath that Lenovo sticker is going to be a Phillips head bit. So just take that out and then pull the SSD out of the motherboard. And then it does not look like this one has a secondary hard drive, but the caddy looks like it just comes out with 3 Phillips head screws. If there is a hard drive installed, you want to pull the caddy backwards to disconnect the hard drive from the SATA connector. You definitely don't want to just lift it up without pulling it back first. We can remove the caddy and then 4 side screws for your hard drive. And we can go ahead and get that Wi-Fi card. So remove the sticky tape and then pull up on the antennas to release them. And then remove the screw. Alright, we'll go ahead and remove the in-out board with the pram battery. Yeah, looks like it's just one screw. And we'll release it from the motherboard by flipping up on the connector. And then we can remove the in-out board with the pram battery. Alright, now we can go ahead and remove the CPU fan. First, I will go ahead and release the video cable. Just use the strap to pull up on the connector. And then just weave it out of the little retainers on the fan. Small connector right here. It's best to just grab it with your fingernails and wiggle it up. And then we'll remove the screws. Alright, same for the heatsink. We'll just go ahead and remove those screws. And just keep in mind, if you are installing a new heatsink, you'll want to tighten the screws in the numbers that are kind of stamped right next to those screw holes. Removing it doesn't make a difference, but you want to put it on in the correct order. Once you have the screws out, just wiggle the heatsink a little bit, it'll come off. Alright, now we can remove the motherboard. So we'll first go around and unhook all of the ribbons. So it looks like most of the type back here are just the flip up retainers. Just flip that up with your fingernail and pull out the ribbon. And then the one for the speakers, just grab those little tabs and wiggle it out. I want to avoid pulling on the cable whenever necessary, or unless necessary. And it looks like one more for that DC jack. Alright, so it looks like we have the cables released, and we can go ahead and remove the screws. And then once you have those screws out, go ahead and give it a little wiggle. Looks like there's a small tab here on the right. And then just pull it sideways to remove the ports from the bottom case. Sometimes they kind of poke through, so you always want to lift on the side of the motherboard that's opposite the ports. Alright, with the motherboard removed, we can go ahead and separate the display assembly from the palm rest assembly. So we can go ahead and open it all the way up. And then we can remove the screws for the hinges. And once you have the screws out, you can just wiggle that display a little bit up and out. Alright, so we have the bare palm rest assembly here. The DC jack was held in by the hinge. So now that the hinge is removed, we can go ahead and remove that DC jack, and there is some pretty strong adhesive underneath. So it might be best to just get a tool under there and just kind of work that DC jack out. Here we go. Alright, so the keyboard on this model is riveted into the palm rest, so the keyboard is not removable. The trackpad, touchpad is just a few screws around the perimeter to remove and replace that, and then the speakers are just kind of held on by rubber grommets. So that is how you take apart the main case assembly. Alright, now for the display assembly, it might be a good idea to just buy this as a complete unit, but I'll give you the steps on removing it. You're going to want to flip up the little covers here for the screws, and then remove the two Phillips head screws around the bezel. Now this thing, it's kind of a nightmare to separate the back cover from the front because the IBM or Lenovo decided to put really strong butyl strips on the back of the screen. So unless you have a good heat gun, I would recommend against taking this apart. But if you do want to take it apart, I will show you where those strips are. But first you want to separate the back cover from the bezel assembly, and to do that you're just going to pry up right here on the front part where the bezel is and just work it around. So yeah, just take your flat tool around the perimeter. And I've already done most of the snapping and popping with the tool, so I can just flip it over and show you. Looks like we need to finish at the bottom. There's kind of a cover right here as well. Go ahead and pull that up. Alright, looks like they have a couple more screws at the bottom. So those two butyl strips on the back, they're about 1 inch in, and the only way you're going to be able to get the back cover off of this thing is to pop up most of the display, go around and pop up most of the bezel from the back cover, and then try to heat gun those strips. Let's see. Just having a look inside there, these strips are extremely, it's stuck on there really well. I had to go along for a few minutes on each side because I do not have a heat gun. So it might make it easier if you do have a heat gun, but you're gonna have to keep it really hot while you work around the outside, or try to get it most of the way worked out, at least where the little snap retainers are, and then heat gun as you're trying to separate it, because it's a real pain, that's for sure. Alright, since we have the assembly open, we can go ahead and just remove those hinges from the back cover, and we'll get the back cover separated from the rest. And I'll also remove the hinges. Alright, so for the remaining screen assembly, we're going to go ahead and remove the webcam, Wi-Fi antennas, and video cable. The LCD screen is attached to the bezel with some strong adhesive, so you will need a heat gun to separate the display screen from the bezel. So I'll go ahead and get rid of some of this tape. And then for the video cable, you want to pull back on this kind of sticky tab, and that will uncover the connector. Alright, so once you have that pulled back, just pull the connector straight out. And also remove the other tape, and we'll go ahead and pull that connector straight out as well. And looks like we're going to need to free those ribbons, so just flip up on that little retainer with your thumb or fingernail, and then you can wiggle the video cable out. Looks like we have another small connector. And then we'll need to remove the webcam, or the cable from the webcam as well. peel back on the tape, and then webcam cable also has a lot of tape on it, so once you pull that tape back, just get your fingernail on that little side of the connector. You should pull it straight out. And same for the Wi-Fi antennas, just held on by a little bit of adhesive. And then we'll finish weaving the video cable out of the little tabs. And same with the webcam cable, or Wi-Fi cables, I'm sorry. Just stuck on with a little bit of adhesive. Alright, so like I stated before, if you want to separate the LCD from the actual bezel, do it very gently and definitely use a heat gun. So that's how you disassemble a Lenovo IdeaPad Flex 5. This one was the 1570. If this video helped you or you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.